Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back. Watching the horrors of war emerge in Ukraine over the last month has left many South Africans unsettled by the government's refusal to condemn Russia's military invasion. Instead, South Africa has taken a mediation stand with President Ramaphosa blaming NATO for the war. Since Russia launched its attack on February 24th, President Cyril Ramaphosa's administration has maintained what is described as a neutral position on the escalating crisis in Eastern Europe, even though most of the world has condemned it. When 193 nations voted on a resolution to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine at the United Nations General Assembly on March 2nd, South Africa was part of a minority that abstained from the ballot. Mr. Ramaphosa explained then that South Africa wants to see an end to the war, but it refused to support the resolution because it did not foreground the call for meaningful engagement. Let's listen to a track from the Deputy Minister for International Relations and Cooperation, Candid Mashego Dlamini.
Deputy Speaker, South Africa's approach on the Russian-Ukraine matters has been based on the following key principle, which in turn are based on the foreign policy, to expressing deep concern at the violation of the UN Charter and international law, the loss of life, the humanitarian impact, and the forced displacement of people as a result of war in Ukraine. Recognizing the armed conflict would no doubt result in human suffering and destruction, the effect of which will not only affect Ukraine, but also reverberate across the world. No country is immune to the effect of this conflict. As the UN Secretary General has indicated, the conflict will have a huge impact on the global economy in a moment when we are emerging from COVID-19 pandemic, and so many developing countries absolutely need to have space for recovery. South Africa emphasizes respect to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. On the 9th of September 2021, BRICS leaders have expressed concern at the continuing conflict and violence in the different parts of the world. The BRICS leaders reaffirmed their commitment to the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of states and reiterated that all conflicts must be resolved by peace means and through political and diplomatic effort in line with the international law, that is the UN Charter. South Africa continues to support and encourage regional initiatives such as the Minsk Agreement, and we welcome the work of the Normandy format, the Trilateral Contact Group, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. South Africa supports the involvement of the good offices of the UN Secretary General, as it could also make a positive contribution in finding a lasting solution to this conflict.
Let's speak now to South Africa Bureau Chief Betty Dibia, who joins me from Johannesburg virtually. Good morning, Betty.
Morning, Larry. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. This is a very unique position, almost standing alone on the African continent. South Africa still standing by the principles of the fact that someone is your enemy doesn't automatically make the person my enemy. But that's not completely playing out according to public wishes, is it?
Not really. You have those who are diehard supporters of the stance of the ANC-led government. You still have those like the Democratic Alliance, that's the main opposition party, who are telling the president and his party that they have chosen to stand on the wrong side of history. But I guess it would be safe to say that Russia has a very good relationship with South Africa. The support that the Soviet Union gave South Africa at the time that the struggle stalwarts were fighting for freedom in the country, and then the renewed friendship that they had post-apartheid. For 3 or 4 days right after the war began in Ukraine, you had both countries celebrating 30 years of their relationship. Here in South Africa, of course, there was condemnation here and there. But I guess as the Minister Mashego Dlamini had said, part of the speech that she made there, she said it's more of a principle thing. As you said, standing by their friends. It cannot be economic because trade with Ukraine and Russia is much, much lower between both countries, much, much lower compared to trade with the NATO countries. If you're looking at 2021 alone, you have trade export-import between both countries standing about 15.7 billion rand, whereas in NATO countries, we're looking at 1.1 trillion rand, the chunk of that from the US and the UK. So I guess it's more of standing by their friends than economic. That debate in Parliament was looking at the impact, economic impact of this. The DA spent time talking about it. The DA has been quite vocal, that's Democratic Alliance, draping the City Hall with the colors of Ukraine, standing by Ukraine. We've seen small protests here and there in support of Ukraine, condemning Russia. And we've also seen pro-Russia statements. The EFF actually visited the High Commission, or the ambassador to Russia, Ilya Rogachev, declaring their support for Russia, asking the government of South Africa to deepen economic ties with Russia. Whereas the president also got some criticism for calling. On the 10th of March, he called the Russian president, talking about the best way to get, to calm things down. But he got some criticism in that debate in Parliament, saying, why haven't you called the president of Ukraine? One of the ministers defended him, saying, don't talk about what you don't know. Maybe there's negotiation, behind the scenes that we don't know about. But there's so many things going on. You have divided opinions regarding this. And there are people who are also saying, what even can South Africa do? African countries don't even have much of a say. And President Ramaphosa has been saying this, talking about the reforms of the UN, saying the UN has to have some more bite and be able to resolve things through diplomacy, through engagement and negotiation.
Of course, if a look back at history, those who take a look back at history will not be surprised at the position that South Africa is taking now. And when they hear you talk about the South African government, you had praised it that by calling it the ANC-led government. The ANC and what was known as the Soviet Union were very, very close. And South Africa had many other friends who were not particularly well-liked in the West, the likes of Fidel Castro and Colonel Gaddafi, and they stuck with all those people right until the end. So this isn't really a surprise, is it, at the level of government?
Certainly not. It's not a surprise. The Soviet Union was present in South Africa many decades ago, and the relationship went cold, especially when the Soviet Union started supporting the struggle. When incidents like the Sharpeville massacre, which we commemorated last Monday, happened. So they became the enemy. But things started getting back in 1992 when diplomatic relations, 1992, yes, diplomatic relations were restored. You had the official visit of the clerk to Moscow. You had, who can forget the picture of Nelson Mandela and Boris Yeltsin in 1999, I think, when he visited Moscow to endorse the declaration on the principles of friendly relations and partnership. So they are friends, and they're not shy to say that. Vladimir Putin, that's the president of Russia, I think was the very first head of state of Russia to visit South Africa too as well. So there are many areas where they collaborate under BRICS, as the minister has said, under the United Nations, the G20, and science as well. Recently, the Omicron study mission, when Omicron was unveiled here in South Africa, they stood by the country as well. So it's the friendship that has come a long way, and they're sticking with that friendship.
Finally, before I let you go, Betty, I must ask, of course, about the point you raised earlier about mediation efforts. South Africa has emphasized the issue of mediation, that what is important is not condemning one side or praising the other, but mediation to end the conflict. But in practical terms, beyond the phone call you referred to between the two presidents of Russia and South Africa, what can or what is South Africa doing or able to do towards bringing the two parties or the number of parties involved together to resolve this?
It is still mediation, talking. That's what they're doing. How much impact that will make is another thing entirely. The Ukrainian ambassador in South Africa had said, okay, use your leverage on your friendship with Russia to do much more, leverage on that friendship to, of course, they were disappointed with the voting pattern, or the vote of South, or not, the abstention of South Africa from that vote at the UN. But they're saying leverage on that to negotiate much more, go deeper, and reach out to both sides to ensure that you draw them together. Probably they're doing that, we don't know yet, but we know President Ramaphosa is quite a negotiator. So maybe he doesn't want to let out everything that's been done. But we know that they're talking to Russia. How much they're engaging with Ukraine, we don't know yet. Maybe that will come out in a few days to come. And going back to that vote, I guess they're also cautious, about what happened, the fiasco that happened in Resolution 1973 or 1973. That gave way to that Operation Dawn Odyssey that happened in Libya, where they were talking about negotiations, and the next thing they voted in favor of a no-fly zone. And you know the implication of having a no-fly zone. That didn't go well. The government then of President Zuma was criticized at the time. So I guess playing in between and sticking with not sticking sides because they have relations with both countries is what they're going ahead with, and hopefully they'll be able to make a difference. That's hopefully.
Thank you very much, Betty, for the update there, and do continue to stay safe. Our bureau chief in South Africa, Betty Dibia from Johannesburg.
Thank you.
Thank you.